To John chapter 4. We've been there before. Not very long ago, I don't think. John chapter 4, verse number 13 is where I want to start. And I would simply title what my message is today, What Thirst Do You Have? Because there are multiple different things that we can thirst for. John 4:13, Jesus answered and said unto her, Whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again. But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water, springing up into everlasting life. The woman saith unto him, Sir, give me this water, that I thirst not, neither come hither to draw. And that story has been preached many, many times, many different ways, I know. But I want to focus on verse 15 because Jesus is demonstrating here, I think, in perpetuity to mankind, the part of the problem of man. And I think in this question that she asked is a lot of times the answer why we miss the mark. Because Jesus is relating to her something that is extremely spiritual, extremely deep, and very, very important. Something that's going to change the entirety of humanity. And he says that anyone that drinks of this water shall never thirst again, but it's going to be a well of living water springing up within him. And when the woman asks him, she says that she wants the water, but she's thinking about it in her humanity. She's thinking about it in her carnality. She's thinking about it in her physical nature. And she says, I want that water so I don't have to come here to this well and draw water anymore. I want that water inside of me that I'll never thirst. Right. She was completely, in this case, she completely missed the point. Yes. And I know Jesus went on to spend a little more time with her, and the longer she spent, the revelation began to come of who Jesus was. But the reality is, so often in church, we don't have time to teach a Bible study. Right. We don't have time to tell somebody that just walks in the door to give them the Genesis to Revelation understanding of the Scripture. Right. But they hear the preaching, and they hear the teaching, and they respond in the state that they're in, thinking, well, then I can get my blessing, whatever it is that I need. And the Lord so often is not talking about that at all. Right. Matter of fact, what He's wanting us to do more than anything is to realize that the number one thing that should be in our heart is to fall in love with Him and to worship Him. Because when we worship Him, then He can deal with everything else. And when we turn our soul loose in seeking the deeper things of God, He'll take care of everything else. He promised in the Word, He said that if we would seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, that He would add everything else that we had need of. But so often we hear preaching and it's, I'd like to say that it's just kind of isolated, but it's not. So often we're sitting with our mindset focused about where we are physically, where we are mentally, where we are in our existing current life. This bill's due, this car's broke down, this situation's going on, and we hear the preaching, and we feel the unction, and we think God's going to do a miracle, and my immediate change is going to take place. And He's not talking about your car. He's not talking about your job. He's not talking about anything else. He's saying, if I'll let you in, if you'll let me in, I'll change it from the inside out. Amen. I've said it before, and I don't mean it to sound hard, but I don't think He really cares about our car. Right. I mean, I believe He does care about our needs, but it doesn't matter to Him. You know how easy it is for Him to make a car run? Right. Yes. That's nothing. He can cause someone that give you a car. Yes. Those are minor problems. Amen. Okay? It's a minor problem if you got a sickness in your body. That's minor. But it's the taking care of the deep need of our heart, a relationship with Him, a passion about Him, a love for Him. That's what's missing in the heart of man. Right. Look at the world that we're living in. When you talk about passion, what does people think about? Yeah. You know, that we misconstrue it to talk about sexuality. It's not that at all.
Right, right.
When we talk about a passion for a sport or a passion for a hobby or this or that, but how many people, when you talk about a passion, think about the one thing that's the most important thing in the world? When you ask them, what's your passion? How many people say, oh, that I can know Jesus? And that's what it's all about.
Amen.
I mean, that's the whole purpose of our journey on this planet, is so that we can somehow make contact with the Creator and spend eternity with Him. If we miss that, we've missed the whole point. We've missed the whole point. My question today is, what are you thirsty for?
Right, right.
Have you ever been so thirsty that you just had to have something to drink? And you know what so often in America we do is we run to the refrigerator, or icebox, or cooler, whatever you call it, the vending machine, and we get us a nice cold Coke or Pepsi.
Right.
It's about 3/4 sugar and about half salt.
Right.
And we suck that down our gullet, and we think, oh, my thirst is quenched. And within a few minutes, we have to have another one, and another one, and another one, because it doesn't satiate the thirst.
Right. That's right.
It's the same way in spiritual things. We have people that come to church week after week, week after week. I'm not just talking about here. I'm talking about church collectively. They hear the preaching. They see the powerful move of God. There's a great move of God going. But somehow down in their soul, there's something that never gets satisfied. And it's partly because we're thirsting after the wrong things.
Amen. Amen. Jesus, Jesus.
You see, it's when we begin to desire the deep things of God that God then begins to pay attention in a greater capacity about revealing Himself to us. He wants to reveal deep things about Himself. We already know His identity. We know His Savior. We know His Redeemer. We know He's all those things. But there's something deeper. This is about relationship, and it's about God wanting to show us and reveal to us who He is so that we can know Him better. He already knows us. He wants us to know Him better. James, in the book of James, it's addressed this way. He says, from whence comes wars and fightings among you? Now, bear in mind, this is an epistle. By definition, an epistle is written to the church. It is addressing issues in the body of the church. It is not written to the world. It's not written to world leaders. It's not written to governments. It's written to particular churches or leaders of churches to address particular issues within the church. So why in the world does James say, where does wars and fightings come from among you? Is the church at war with each other? Are we at war among the saints? No. What's he talking about? He's talking about spiritual warfare, spiritual battles, things that are taking place that are robbing the kingdom, robbing individuals of what God intended them to have. Because look at what he goes to next. He says, come they not hence, even from your lust that war in your members? What of our members? He's talking about our bodies. Not just the members of the church, but us as individuals. The things that cause us the most grief is the lust of our flesh. There's three things in the world: the lust of the eye, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. The pursuit of those things are an insatiable pursuit that can never be satisfied, that will never be completely taken care of. And once we get one thing in our desire, it's got to have something bigger, got to have something more. You just talk to anybody out there that's giving themselves over to the lust of their flesh, and they'll tell you the same thing if they're truthful when they get to it. Talk to some drug addict and ask him where he started.
Right.
Ask him if he started on heroin, shooting it in his veins.
Right.
Most of them didn't start there. They started with something little.
Yeah.
You know, we call it little now. Marijuana, pot, whatever you want to call. That used to be the big thing. Now it's the little thing.
Yeah.
Now they want to legalize that and make it okay for everybody.
Yeah.
What happens though? They get a hit off of that. That only works for a while, and then the next hit's not near as good. So they got to find something else. You know why? We're getting so many heroin overdoses in the area because they get a little bit of taste of heroin, and the next hit's got to be a little stronger. And then they can't get enough of it in the heroin, so they start mixing something else in it. And these guys get it, and they remember what they had last time, and it didn't give them quite the kick that they felt like they needed. So now they got something that's got a little more stuff in it, and they shoot a little extra in their veins, and their bodies can't take it. That's the process. It's an ugly process. I know that. We've got people in the building that's suffered losses because of that. I understand that. But that's the problem with sin. We are never satisfied. That's the problem with our desire. We're never satisfied. And so often we come to a house of God, and some people are disgruntled with God because they're not satisfied.
That's right. Jesus.
And my question today is why not? Because Jesus said, if you hunger and thirst after righteousness, you shall be filled.
Amen.
He said there is no minimal spot. There is no insatiable desire. He said, if you hunger after me, you hunger after my righteousness, I will fill you.
Right.
So my point here today is that we are unsatisfied in church.
Right.
If we're unsatisfied where we are right now, it is not because God is lesser to you than He is to somebody else.
Right.
It is not because God is not a God of His Word. We better go back and look at the root desires that are inside of us and find out what it is that really makes me tick.
Right.
What is it that I really want? What am I really thirsty for?
Yes.
James goes on, the writing in James goes on and says, you lust and you have not.
Yes.
You kill and you desire to have and cannot obtain.
Yes.
You fight and you war, yet you have not because you ask not.
Right.
And then he says you ask and receive not because you ask amiss, that you may consume it upon your lusts.
Right.
Jesus is given the greatest revelation that He has ever given to any one individual human being on the planet, to the woman at the well.
Yeah.
He's revealing to her something that nobody else had personally been given the opportunity to see firsthand from Him, who He was, what He was, without any questions.
Right.
He was giving her the revelation. And she said, give me a drink of this water
Right.
so I don't have to come to this well anymore.
Yeah.
That is the root problem in the heart of man. He goes on, he says, you ask and receive not because you ask amiss, that you may consume it upon your lust. Then look at the words he uses. You adulterers and adulteresses. He's writing to the church.
Yeah.
That's some pretty heavy language to the church. He says, know ye not that the friendship of the world is enmity with God?
Right.
Whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is the enemy of God. Do you think that the Scripture saith in vain, the Spirit that dwelleth in us lusteth to envy? But He giveth grace, more grace, wherefore He saith, God resisteth the proud, but giveth grace to the humble. Then He says, submit yourselves therefore to God.
Yeah.
Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw nigh to God. This is the key. Draw nigh to God, and He will draw nigh to you.
Yeah.
Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Be afflicted, and mourn, and weep. Let your laughter be turned to mourning, and your joy to heaviness. Is he saying that the only way to get what you want from God is to just become miserable in life? No. He's teaching principle here. Their principle was they were consuming everything upon their lust. They're trying to satiate their flesh. They're trying to make their flesh completely comfortable and happy with everything that they want from God, everything that they're getting in the church. They just want their self to be happy. He said, that's not the way of the kingdom.
Right.
The way of the kingdom is not that way. Jesus said it this way, if a man's going to come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. And then He said, I'll fill you when you're hungry for righteousness. I'll take care of your needs when you put my kingdom first. It's not denying us of anything. He's saying that the problem is right here. When we put this first, it puts God out of the picture. But when we put this aside, this flesh aside, our desires aside, our wants aside, and say, Lord, I want you first. I want to love you. I want to know you. I want to have a relationship with you. He said, I'll take care of those minor things if you'll search for the deeper things. He's never one time said that he's going to keep any good thing from us.
Right.
But our humanity says that if it feels good, it must be good, so I don't want to let go of it.
Right.
And Jesus is saying there's some things we have to let go of
Yes.
before he can truly reveal himself.
Yes.
And when he truly reveals himself, then all these other things are taken care of.
Yeah.
Listen, he goes on. He says in verse 10, humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord, and he shall lift you up. All right. Let's change gears for a minute and go back to the Old Testament for a second. The writer in Psalms chapter 42, David writes this in verse 7. He says, deep calleth unto deep at the noise of thy waterspouts. All thy waves and thy billows are gone over me. The things that God wants to reveal to us are far deeper than our carnal mind, our human mind and intellect can comprehend, first of all, or can desire, primarily. Because if you think about our flesh is a pretty basic chunk of clay.
Yes.
All we want to do is feed it.
Right.
Make it comfortable, feed it, keep it warm, make it happy. Pretty basic thing. About every baby in the world, you look at a baby, that's basically what our flesh is like. Keep me clean, keep me fed, let me sleep, let me take care of myself. They're not worried about calculus, physics, balancing checkbooks, cars running, rent being paid. All they want is just take care of this right here.
Yeah.
And if I don't get what I want, I'll scream loud enough and you'll hear me and then you'll give me what I want. Okay?
Right.
That's what the baby is like. Well, the truth of the matter is we never lose the inner baby.
Right.
We're all that same way, pretty much generally. You don't get what you want, we scream loud enough, somebody will pay attention to us. Look at our society today, they're screaming all over the streets.
Yeah.
I want this, we want this, we want that, we want you to think of us this way, we want you to love us, we want you to do this. What is it? It's a bunch of babies wanting their own way, and society's not going to work that way.
Right.
We live in a church like this, not everybody can sit in the same spot on the pew.
That's right.
Okay?
Amen.
But if it's your spot, your favorite spot, and her favorite spot, and his favorite spot, and their favorite spot, we'd have people sitting on top of each other yelling, this is my spot. I mean, that's the foolishness of our world. That's what we do.
Yeah. That's
Okay?
right.
And the truth of the matter is we all can't sit in the same spot. We can't all have the same thing at the same time.
Right.
We learn these things in kindergarten.
Right.
And then we go out and protest them in the street.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, we're messed up. And now we can understand that from the worldview. I can understand that. But we shouldn't be that messed up in the church.
Right.
We shouldn't come in with a little whine baby attitude saying, well, God didn't do this for me this week, so I'm not going to praise and worship Him. I'm just going to put heaven. Well, I might not even show up.
Right. That's right. Jesus.
He said, you ask and receive not because you just want to take care of yourself.
That's right.
He said, if you ask for the right thing, I'll give it to you unconditionally.
Right.
Did He not say it?
Yes.
He did say it.
Yes, He did.
Please understand, I'm not saying we don't pray and ask for stuff. We need to, but we need to put everything in perspective. My greatest need is not for my car to run.
Right.
My greatest need is not for a pay raise.
Right.
My greatest need is to be cleansed of my sins, to be right with my God, and to worship Him and to know Him. That's my greatest need. And He said, if you'll seek those things first, everything else will fall into place.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, they say you can lead a horse to water, but but you can't make him drink. And that is the truth. If you've never seen that, it is the truth. You can hang on a horse's reins and try and pull his head to the water. If he don't want to drink, he's going to hold you off the ground.
That's right. That's right.
He may need to drink, but if he don't want to, he's not going to. He might know there's something in the water he don't want. But the reality is that you can't make them. Do you ever try and satisfy somebody that's not hungry?
Right.
I know my wife can, and she'll say amen to that. What are you hungry for? I don't care.
That's it.
Make whatever. I'll eat anything.
All right.
Well, I'm going to make this. No, I don't want that. Well, what do you want? I don't care. Just make anything. Just don't make that. You know what the real problem is? I'm not hungry.
That's right.
That's right.
Just not hungry. Because you know what? When you get hungry, I come in one day not long ago. I've been outside. I forgot to eat lunch. I was busy. I hadn't ate lunch. She made something that wasn't particularly my favorite meal anyway. And I sit down there and said, you know, that's pretty good. You know what I found out? I was hungry.
Yeah.
I ate it. Didn't even think about it. There was a difference in my approach.
Right.
Listen, folks, you can preach till your head splits open in front of people. And if they're not hungry, nothing's going to happen. But if people get hungry, all you got to do is tell them Jesus is in the building and they want to know what's going on. That's one of the differences in preaching in Malawi than preaching in America. When you preach there, you got to be careful. Don't say, let's come and pray, because they'll all run to the altar right now and the preaching's over. Because they're hungry. They want God. They're looking for a move. I'm trying to get us to understand, whatever you're thirsty for, that's what you're going to drink. Whatever you really want, that's what you're going to get. And if you don't want nothing, you'll just be content where you are.
That's right.
And
Amen.
it don't matter if Jesus shows up in person. It's not going to make any difference. Because some people say, well, when I see the miracle, then I'll go after it. No, you won't. They didn't do it for him. He's looking her face first in the face and saying, I am the Messiah. And she says, give me a drink so I don't have to come to this well.
Yeah. That's right.
He looked to the man that's been laying by the pool who can't get in and said, wilt thou be made whole?
Yeah.
He didn't know what was going on. Jesus said, do you want me to heal you?
Yeah.
He said, no one can help me into the pool.
Yeah.
I can't get over there. So I guess I'll just have to stay the way I am.
Yeah. Jesus.
I can go down a list of people, names of people that I know personally that have been in church, that when they were in church, God was there moving, drawing on them. I can tell you specifically, God drawed on them and they didn't respond. And they're not here now and their lives are wrecked. And if they would have just responded,
That's right.
True.
God could have changed it. But they're caught up in what they're hungry for and thirsty for right now.
That's right.
And so often, it
Jesus.
is not what we think.
Yes.
Someone just told me, I don't know who it was, Brittany or Diana or somebody, tell me they were reading someplace about when you're trying to lose weight and all that. Said that the majority of the time when you feel hungry, your body has hunger pains and you feel hungry, is you're not really hungry. You're thirsty. But our behavior is such that when our stomach growls, we want to grab our comfort food.
Right.
When I really need a plain drink of water,
Right.
I eat a cupcake,
That's right.
or a brownie, or a Snicker bar, or 3 Cokes. I'm just trying to make a point. We do that with our everyday life, with this carcass we drag around every day.
Yes.
And then we wonder why when we come to church, and we're preaching about the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, who spoke the world into existence, who died on Calvary's cross, why people can sit on a pew and be the same, coming and going.
Right.
That's
That's
right.
right.
That's right.
There ought to be something stir up in every one of us when we walk in the door that says, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm coming into the presence of the King of Kings, and I want something in me to change. I want to make a connection. I want to feel a touch. I want to be changed by Him. Paul said, oh, that I might know Him. I can't be satisfied knowing I've preached unto others, because I could become a castaway.
Yes.
He said, I got to know Him for myself.
Right.
Yes. Come on. Praise God.
belief at times about David being a man after God's own heart. He certainly was anything but a perfect man.
Right.
Matter of fact, he was a mess.
Yeah.
He was a poor father,
Right.
a bad administrator.
Yeah.
But the only thing he knew to do well was wield a sword.
Yeah.
And a couple other things. He could play his harp. And he knew how to worship. And he had a desire in his heart to know God. That's what God was pleased with. He knew his problems. He knew what he was when he called him to be king. He already knew Bathsheba was going to be in the future. But he said, there's a man who wants to know my will. There's a man who wants to know me. There's a man that in the end is going to do what I want because he's hungry to be in my presence. Because that man wrote in Psalms 42:1, as the hart pants after the water brook, so panteth my soul after thee, O God.
Right.
Yes.
My soul thirsteth for God, he says.
Yes.
When shall I come and stand and appear before my God? I'm hungry for you, God.
Thank you, Jesus.
I need you. He said in Psalm 63:1, O God, thou art my God. Early will I seek thee. My soul thirsteth for thee. My flesh longeth for thee in a dry and thirsty land where no water is. He said, I live in this earth and nobody knows about the living water. But he said, I remember on the backside of that mountain with them sheep, I drank of the well of living water with you. I want your presence. Psalms 84:2, my soul longeth, yea, even fainteth for the courts of the Lord. My heart and my flesh crieth out for the living God. Another place he said, one thing have I desired of the Lord, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life.
Yes, sir.
You see the difference in the man. Yeah, he had to wear a sword to be the king, but there was something in his heart. He said, I won't touch the Lord's anointed. I'm going to worship God. I'm going to pray. Let's seek the face of God.
Yes.
Psalms 143 says, I stretch forth my hands unto thee. I'm talking about the king.
Yeah.
He said, I stretched forth my hands. The same king stripped himself of his royal robes and danced around in his linen ephod before the ark of God. Why? Because he loved God. His wife said, you look like a foolish man out there today, dancing around in your underwear. That's basically what she told him. There are some that even sit in the church and they say you look awful foolish when you're trying to get a hold of God. So what? So what? Let them sit there and scoff and be hungry and go into eternity long. But I'm not going to be denied when I need something. I want to know him. I want to touch him. This is my spirit. This is my heart. This is my life on the line. My children that's lost. It's my family that needs saved. I need to be right so that God can move in my situation.
Hallelujah. That's right. That's right. That's right. Hallelujah. My Lord.
My soul, verse 84:2, Psalms 84:2. My soul longeth, yea, even fainteth for the courts of the Lord. My heart and my flesh cry out for the living God. I stretch forth my hands unto thee, my soul thirsteth after thee as a thirsty land. Jesus said it this way. In the Beatitudes, you know. This is the attitude you should have. You need to be this way.
Right. That's right.
Blessed are they that hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. There is no room in that for mistake. And there is no room in that for God to not fulfill his promise. The only caveat is are we hungry and thirsting after righteousness?
Right. Right.
Because he said, if you are, you will be filled.
Tell us, Lord.
John chapter 7, verse 37. Jesus says this. Now listen to the words of this. In the last day, that great day of the feast. Everybody say feast. Have you ever been to a feast where there was nothing to drink? Anybody? Why then does Jesus ask the next question? They're in the middle of a feast. They got everything spread out in front of them. He said, if any man thirst, let him come unto me and drink. See, Jesus was full of these things. He did these things all the time. He would be talking to them about where they were in their immediate situation and be opening some spiritual implication to them, and they completely missed it. He did it all the time with the Sadducees and the Pharisees. They'd raise questions, and he'd answer their questions with a question, and they'd stand there dumbfounded because they know they can't answer it, because if they answer it, they're in a trap.
Yeah.
Here he is standing in the middle of a feast where there's food and drink all around them, and he says, if anybody's here thirsty, come to me and drink.
Right.
Yes.
And then we come to church,
Yeah.
and the world's a mess.
Yes.
And we talk about politics, and we complain about this and that and the other, and I'm not saying I do the same thing. The weather. Hate it when it's hot, hate it when it's too cold, now it's raining.
That's right.
If God had a weatherman, he'd be a busy guy. Just in the church, he'd be real busy. Just in this church, he'd be real busy. He'd be real busy with me. Let's just be honest. It's either too hot, too cold, too wet, too damp, too dry. But we go through all that.
Yes.
Well, I don't even know. Did the Mountaineers win? I don't know. Did they win Brother Warren? Good, they won. I didn't know. But we go through all the stuff.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with stuff because we live in it. We're here, right? We deal with it. Cars break down. There's not a problem. I'm not saying that. We have interests. There's things that tweak our buttons. Not a problem. But then when the preaching goes forth, and the preaching of the gospel, and the moving of the Spirit, and the drawing of the Lord, we shouldn't be sitting about thinking about the Mountaineers or thinking about anything else. There ought to be something that says, I don't need any of that. There's something greater. I need to know Him.
My Lord, help me. Thank you.
Jesus is standing in a place where all of their physical needs have been taken care of.
Yes.
They just get finished up with the feast of the week, and it's a great feast and a great place of food spread out. They had everything they could eat there. And he says, if you're thirsty, come to me. Sometimes I feel like that's what God does to the church. We come in and everything's going on.
Yeah.
And he says, but if you're thirsty,
Yeah.
if you're thirsty, I'm here. I want to give you the drink.
Yes.
Because I read in Revelation where it says, behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anybody will hear my voice and come and answer the door, I will come in and sup with him.
Yes, Jesus.
Yes.
In the name
Praise God. Praise God.
have your way, Lord.
Problem is, though,
Yes, Lord. Yes.
is that if I'm too comfortable, I don't want to get up and answer the door.
Right. Right.
Which might be sometimes why the Lord allows us to go through those uncomfortable times,
Right.
so that it will drum up a little bit of hunger or thirst in us.
Right. Amen.
What I found out in my life, though, so often is even in those times, my first reaction is about my immediate need. Usually my human need, and not the deeper spiritual need. Which sometimes I believe is why my trial lasts and lasts and lasts until finally a light clicks on one day and I realize all that stuff I've been worried about don't really mean anything. If God don't change this about me, I'm not going to move forward.
That's right.
And then I start to pray about the right thing. I'm just being honest.
That's right.
And it seems like within a matter of just no time, God starts opening doors and things begin to change. You know why? Because He's got to sort and sift through all the junk first. This is what our flesh is like. when we go to prayer and we struggle to get in a place of prayer because my mind's wandering on this and that and the other, what we're doing is we're dragging all that junk with us into the prayer room.
Right, right.
That's not a problem because that's normal. But what needs to happen is I need to linger there. And I need to start chucking things out of the way and pushing things behind until I sort through all the junk and get into the face-to-face place with Him where I realize all of that doesn't mean anything if I can't touch Him. But if I can touch Him, He'll take care of everything that's behind me. And that's what this relationship with Jesus is about. He said those that are after the kingdom, they'll press into the kingdom. They'll push their way through. They shove. What do we got to shove our way through? I'm not pushing anybody out of the crowd out of the way. I got to push the junk that's in my own life to the side and push things out of the way and say there's one thing that I desire that I'll seek after. I want to get into His presence. I don't care about all this other junk. I need to feel Jesus. I need to touch Him. I need an answer from the Lord. I want to come face to face with Him.
Thank you, Jesus.
Yes. Yes.
The Lord was constantly after Israel because they would not seek His face. And what He was saying when He was dealing with the fact that they won't seek my face, He was saying they would rather have my hand than they would my face.
That's right.
They want what I got, but they don't want me. They want to have my blessing, but they don't want to know me. What God has always wanted is a people that want to know Him first. And then He said, I'll withhold nothing from you.
Yes. Come on.
Look what He did to Adam. He gave God, the Bible says, God planted the garden.
Yes.
Right.
He don't make a mistake. He planted the garden and He put man into it. He gave him a perfect environment with one caveat. Just want to know me and be truthful and faithful to me. That's all.
Yes.
That's what this is all about. When I say He doesn't care about your car, I say that tongue in cheek. I think He really does care. Ultimately. But He don't care about that near as much as He cares about relationship with you.
Right.
You know what? I found that to be true with my own kids. Brett called me the other day. He had a flat tire. He drove his car from his house to Spring Mills on a flat tire, going to put air on it, hit sheets. I said, Bud, you can't do that. You got alloy wheels. You know, back in the day when tires were made out of steel, or wheels were made out of steel, you could probably ride on the wheel and forget the tire most of the time. You can't do that with an alloy wheel. So I was a little irritated that he did that. And I hadn't heard from him for a while, so he calls me to fix the car. And I started to think, you know, but the dad thing kicks in. I said, yeah, but I'll go up and take care of it. I'll find out what's going on. But you know what? I found out. He come and saw me the other day, brought me something, gave me a big hug before he left. That's really what I would rather have. He could ask me to, for my own car and give it to him in that environment. I'm trying to make a point. It's about what God's wanting. He wants to know us, and He wants us to know Him. And He already said, if that will be the priority of your life, I'll take care of everything else. But He's got to be first. Revelation, I'm going to close with 22 and 17. Summation of the revelation of Jesus Christ. It's the very end. I'm going to go read one verse. I'm not going to read it all, but verse 17, he says, and the Spirit and the bride say, come. And let him that heareth say, come. And then the big caveat. And let him that is athirst come. And whosoever will, let him take the water of life freely.
Find that life.
Doesn't matter what the problems are. It doesn't matter where we've been. He'll take us just the way we are. And those that come to a place to begin to love Him and desire Him, He'll wash them, He'll clean them, He'll put His Spirit in them, He'll put His blessing on them, He'll turn their life around, and all of a sudden things will be going in different directions than what they've ever been before because they put Him first. That's always one. And today my question would be, what are you thirsty for? We can get anything we want to in our human flesh. Big glass of ice water, lemonade, it don't matter. let me just be real plain and candid. When I played football, they would run us to death, especially in August. And I can remember being so thirsty when I got to that football, they would make us run laps at the end. And when we got done, we would be so thirsty, some of them guys would fill their old stinky, sweaty helmet up with water and drink water out of it. I'm telling you the truth. I remember dipping my hand in an ice bucket that looked like a mud puddle, with all them dirty, stinky hands going down there, and they had mud and ice all grabbing that ice and letting the water shift out of my hand and throwing that ice in my mouth. I was so thirsty, it didn't matter. I didn't care. Okay? All matter what you're thirsting for. When you get thirsty, you'll drink. And my question is today is if we thirst after Him. I feel the presence of the Lord here today. There is not a thing in the world He can't take care of right in this building. There has to be no special environment. There has to be no special move of God. There don't have to be any preliminaries to make it happen. All it takes is somebody that says, I need to touch Him and I need something right now, and faith to raise up, and God can take care of a need instantly right in this place. But we have to hunger for Him. Sister Gordon, come. Hallelujah. I know I'm preaching to the choir. I'm not trying to make us feel bad at all, because I believe that there's hunger in this building. But I'm trying to make the point. We can't allow this world to deaden our relationship with God. We can't allow circumstances to deaden our relationship. There's a God of glory that's in this place. We felt His presence here today. I feel it right now. He's in this building. We need to be able to somehow shut everything else out and let God be God and let Him work in our lives. And just come with a passion to know Him. And I'll promise you, God's going to reveal Himself to us in greater ways. Let's stand today. Hallelujah.